The night my life ended, and began again. Smelled like roasted ham and pine needles. It was December 23, 2018. The air inside my parents' Victorian home in upstate New York was warm, stiflingly so. I remember adjusting my tie in the hallway mirror, telling myself to breathe. I was 26, and for the first time in my life, I felt like I had finally made it. I wasn't just the quiet younger brother anymore. I was Ethan Sterling, the guy who had just closed his first major commercial real estate deal. I had spent months saving for this night. I wanted to prove to them, to my mother, Joyce, and my father, Robert, that I was worthy. That I wasn't just the shadow to my older brother, Lucas. I walked into the living room, my arms full of gifts. The tree was lit up, a towering spruce that scraped the high ceiling. "You're late," my mother said. She didn't look up from the table she was setting. "Lucas has been here for an hour." "Sorry, Mom," I said, forcing a smile. Traffic coming out of the city was a nightmare. I set the boxes down. I had gone all out. For Mom, a set of Wusthof knives imported from Germany. She'd been complaining about her dull blades for years. For Dad, a leather recliner with a built-in massager to help his bad back. And for Lucas, well, I bought him a Rolex, a Submariner. Cost more than my first car. I wanted to bury the hatchet. I wanted us to be brothers again. Lucas was sitting on the sofa, nursing a scotch. He looked tired. His shirt was untucked, his hair a mess. Sitting next to him was Bella. I had only met Bella twice before. She was stunning in a sharp, dangerous kind of way. Dark hair, eyes that seemed to calculate the cost of everything they landed on. She was Lucas's fiancée of 8 months. "Hey, big spender," Lucas muttered, swirling his drink. "Hear you closed that deal on the warehouse district." "It went well," I said, trying to be modest. "It's a good start." "Must be nice," Bella chimed in. Her voice was like syrup. "Lucas has been working so hard on his construction business. But the market is just so unfair right now." I knew the truth. Lucas wasn't working hard. He was taking jobs he couldn't finish and spending the down payments on weekend trips to Vegas. But in this house, Lucas was the golden child. He could do no wrong. We sat down for dinner. The tension was thick enough to cut with those new knives I bought. "So, Ethan," Bella asked, picking at her food, "what kind of commission does a deal like that bring in?" "6 figures. My dad cleared his throat. "We don't talk money at the table, Bella. I'm just asking." She laughed, placing a hand on Lucas's arm. "We're family, right? And family helps family." Lucas and I were looking at venues for the wedding, and honestly, the prices are criminal. I focused on my plate. I knew where this was going. It always went here. After dinner, the gifts were opened. Mom looked at the knives and said, "Sharp, dangerous." That was it. Dad sat in the chair, nodded, and said, "It fits." Then Lucas opened the Rolex. He stared at it. For a second, I saw genuine shock in his eyes. Then he looked at me, and his expression hardened. It wasn't gratitude. It was resentment. I had bought him something he couldn't afford to buy himself. I had unintentionally insulted his manhood in front of his fiancée. "Thanks," he grunted, shoving the box aside without putting the watch on. "It's beautiful," Bella cooed, her eyes gleaming as she looked at the watch, then at me. "You really are doing well, aren't you, Ethan?" 20 minutes later, I stepped out onto the wraparound porch to get some air. The snow was coming down hard, blanketing the world in silence. I lit a cigarette, a bad habit I picked up during the stress of the closing. The door creaked open behind me. It was Bella. She wasn't wearing a coat, just her cocktail dress. She shivered, hugging her arms. "You got a light?" she asked. I handed her my lighter. She lit a slim cigarette, inhaled deep, and stepped closer to me. Too close. I could smell her perfume. Something heavy, floral, and expensive. "You know," she said softly, "Lucas is drowning. He owes money to some bad people." "I'm sorry to hear that," I said, stepping back. "But I've bailed him out 3 times, Bella. He needs to learn. He doesn't have your talent," she said. She reached out and ran a finger down the lapel of my suit jacket. "He's not a man like you, Ethan. You have power. I like power." My stomach turned. "Bella, don't. We could help each other," she whispered, leaning in. Her hand moved from my lapel to my chest. "You help Lucas with the money, and I can make sure you're taken care of. Lucas doesn't have to know everything we do." The implication hung in the freezing air like a toxic cloud. She was offering herself to me in exchange for paying off my brother's debts. "You're disgusting," I snapped. I grabbed her wrist, gently, just to move her hand off my chest. "Go back inside. I'm leaving." I turned my back on her. I took 2 steps toward the driveway. That was when the screaming started. "No, Ethan, stop, please." I spun around. Bella had ripped the strap of her dress down. She was messing up her hair with frantic hands. She looked at me, and for a split second, she grinned. A cold, predatory smile. Then she screamed again, a blood-curdling sound. "Get off me! Help! Lucas!" The front door burst open. Lucas flew out, his face red with rage. Mom and Dad were right behind him. "What did you do?" Lucas roared, charging at me. "Nothing." I held my hands up. "She's lying. She came onto me." Bella threw herself into Lucas's arms, sobbing hysterically. He tried to force me. He said since he bought you that watch, he owned me. He said I owed him." Her lies were specific. They were vicious, and they worked instantly. Mom walked up to me. Her face was twisted in a way I had never seen. "You animal." Smack. Her hand connected with my cheek. Stung, but the shock hurt more. "Mom, listen to me. Get out," she screeched. "Get out of my house. I don't want a sexual predator around my family." I looked at Dad. "Dad? You know me. You know I wouldn't." Dad looked at Bella, shivering and crying. He looked at Lucas, who was holding her like a protective knight. Then he looked at the floor. "Go, Ethan," he said quietly. "Just go. You're dead to me," Lucas spat. "If I see you near her again, I'll kill you." I stood there for a moment, the snow soaking into my dress shoes. I looked at the house I grew up in. I looked at the people who were supposed to know me better than anyone in the world. They didn't even ask for my side. They just believed the worst because it suited the narrative. The golden child needed a villain, and I was the perfect candidate. "Fine," I said. My voice was calm, which surprised me. "Keep the watch, Lucas. You're going to need to sell it." I walked to my car. I didn't look back. As I pulled out of the driveway, I saw them ushering Bella back into the warmth of the house. I was alone in the storm. I drove for 3 hours until the gas light came on. I pulled into a Motel 6 off the interstate. My hands were shaking so bad I could barely get the credit card out of my wallet. "Declined," the clerk said, popping her gum. "Try again," I said. "There's plenty of money on there." "Declined, honey," says, "call issuer." I pulled up my banking app. Locked. Frozen. Then I remembered. When I was 18, Mom had co-signed on my account to help me build credit. We never took her name off. She had called the bank and reported fraud or suspicious activity. She had cut me off at the knees. I had $40 in cash in my pocket. I paid for the room with cash. I sat on the lumpy mattress, staring at the water stains on the ceiling, and I cried. Not because I was scared, but because I was grieving. I was grieving the death of my family. The next morning I drove west. I didn't stop until I hit Seattle. I chose it because it was as far away from New York as I could get without swimming. I started from zero. Actually, less than zero. I slept in my car for the first 3 weeks, showering at a 24-hour gym. I still had my suits, though. I kept them pressed and clean, hanging in the back seat. They were my armor. I got a job as a junior analyst at a boutique real estate firm. The salary wasn't much, barely enough to rent a studio apartment the size of a closet. But I was hungry. I worked like a dog. I was the first one in at 6 a.m. and the last one out at 9 p.m. I didn't date. I didn't make friends. I just worked. I built a wall around my emotions, brick by brick. 6 months in, I caught a discrepancy in a contract. A zoning error that everyone else had missed. It would have cost the firm millions. I took it directly to the owner, Silas Thorne. Silas was a legend in Seattle real estate, a ruthless, 70-year-old billionaire who chewed up MBAs for breakfast. He looked at the file, then he looked at me over his spectacles. "You went around your manager to bring me this?" he asked. "My manager told me to ignore it," I said. "He said it was a clerical error." "It wasn't." Silas leaned back. "You realize if you're wrong, you're fired?" "I'm not wrong." Silas grinned. It was a shark's grin. "You've got guts, kid. What's your name?" "Ethan Sterling." "Well, Ethan Sterling, you just saved me $4 million. That was the turning point." Silas took me under his wing. He saw something in me, maybe the same loneliness he carried. He taught me that business isn't about money. It's about leverage. It's about knowing what the other person fears more than what they want. 3 years went by. I moved up the ranks faster than anyone in the company's history. I became a partner. I bought a penthouse overlooking the Sound. I bought my first luxury car, a Porsche. But every night, I came home to an empty apartment. That changed when I met Olivia. She was the opposing counsel on a messy inheritance dispute we were handling. She was fierce, brilliant, and she tore my arguments to shreds in the negotiation room. I asked her out to dinner immediately after we settled. "I don't date the enemy," she had said, packing her briefcase. "The war is over," I replied. "Now we're just two people who need a drink." She smiled. It was the first time in years I felt something crack in my chest. Olivia was different. She didn't care about my money. She came from a big, loud, loving family in the Midwest. When I finally told her about what happened that Christmas, she didn't pity me. She just held my hand and said, "Their loss is my gain." For the first time, I felt like I could breathe. I was building a new life, a real life. Then the past came knocking. It was a Tuesday morning. I was in my office, reviewing blueprints for a new skyscraper. My assistant buzzed in. "Mr. Sterling? There's a Mr. Vance here to see you." Vance was a private investigator I had hired 2 years ago. I told myself it was just for safety, to make sure Lucas wasn't trying to steal my identity or something. But deep down, I wanted to know. I wanted to know if they missed me. Vance walked in and tossed a manila folder on my mahogany desk. "You're going to want to sit down for this, Ethan," he said. I opened the file. Photos spilled out. My parents' house looked run down. The lawn was overgrown. The paint was peeling. "What am I looking at?" I asked. "That's the foreclosure notice," Vance said, pointing to a document. "Your parents haven't paid their mortgage in 8 months. The bank is moving to auction the house in 30 days. And Lucas, Vance snorted. "He mortgaged the house to fund his construction company. Then he took out business loans against the company. He's been bleeding cash. He's got 3 lawsuits pending for unfinished work." I felt a cold satisfaction spread through my veins. Karma. It was real. "And Bella?" I asked. Vance pulled out a separate, thinner file. "That's the interesting part. Bella isn't Bella. Her real name is Brenda Miller. She has 2 prior divorces in Ohio and Kentucky. Both husbands filed for bankruptcy shortly after the divorce. She's a pro, Ethan." I stared at the mugshot from an arrest in Ohio for check fraud. It was her. Younger, less polished, but definitely her. "Does Lucas know?" "Nope. She keeps her tracks covered. But here's the kicker." Vance leaned in. "Your dad is sick. Heart condition. He needs surgery. But their insurance lapsed because Lucas stopped paying the premiums on the family policy." The satisfaction vanished, replaced by a complicated knot of anger and guilt. My dad was dying, and Lucas, the golden child, was letting it happen while he played businessman? I stood up and walked to the window, looking out at the rain-slicked streets of Seattle. "Get me the bank on the phone," I told Vance. "Which bank?" "The one holding my parents' mortgage. And get me the list of creditors holding Lucas's business debt." Vance raised an eyebrow. "What are you going to do?" I turned around. "I'm not going to let the bank take that house, Vance." "You're going to save them?" he asked, surprised. I smiled, but there was no warmth in it. No, I'm going to buy the debt. I'm going to become the bank. I want to own every single cent they owe. The process of buying someone's debt is surprisingly clinical. It's just numbers on a screen, wire transfers, and signatures. Within 48 hours, through a shell company called Phoenix Holdings, I owned the mortgage to my childhood home. I also bought the promissory notes for Lucas's failed business loans for pennies on the dollar. The creditors were happy to unload the bad debt. They had no idea the shark swimming in the water was their own son. That night, my phone rang. It was an unknown number. Usually, I let those go to voicemail, but something made me pick up. Hello, Ethan? A small, shaky voice. My heart stopped. Mia. Mia was my little sister. She was 19 when I left, away at college. She wasn't there that Christmas night. She had listened to Mom and Dad's version of the story for 5 years. I didn't think you'd answer, she sobbed. Mom told me you changed your number. I didn't, I said softly. Why are you calling, Mia? It's Dad, she cried. He's in the hospital. The doctors say he needs a bypass, but they want a $60,000 deposit because the insurance is gone. Lucas said he's working on it, but, Ethan, I don't think he has it. Dad looks so gray. I'm scared. Where is Lucas now? I asked. He's at a dinner, she said, her voice dropping to a whisper. With Bella. They're celebrating her birthday. He bought her a new car last week. Alexis. Rage. Pure, white-hot rage blinded me for a second. My father was dying in a hospital bed, and Lucas was buying cars for a con artist with money he didn't have. Listen to me, Mia, I said. I'm going to take care of it, but you cannot tell anyone I helped. Not Mom, not Dad, and definitely not Lucas. Promise me. I promise. 10 minutes later, I wired $70,000 to the hospital's billing department under the name Anonymous Donor. I hung up the phone and looked at Olivia. She was sitting on the couch, reading a brief. She looked up, seeing the expression on my face. It's time, isn't it? She asked. Yes, I said. The town's 100th anniversary gala is next weekend. My parents never miss it. It's the only place they can pretend they're still the respectable Sterling family. Are we going? She asked. We are, I said. Pack your best dress, Olivia. We're going to a funeral. Whose? The Sterling family reputation. We flew private. I didn't do it to show off. I did it because I could. We landed at the small regional airport and rented a car. But not just any car. I had my assistant arrange for a Rolls-Royce Phantom to be delivered from the city. Driving through my hometown was surreal. Everything looked smaller. The cinema where I had my first kiss. The diner where Lucas and I used to get milkshakes before we hated each other. We checked into the only luxury hotel in town. I put on a bespoke Italian suit, charcoal gray, tailored to the millimeter. Olivia wore a midnight blue gown that made her look like royalty. You look like you're going to war, she said, adjusting my tie. I am, I replied. Ready. Always. We drove to the country club. I could see the valet line was full of Fords and Chevys, with a few aging Mercedes mixed in. When the Rolls-Royce pulled up, the conversation on the patio stopped. The valet, a kid I didn't recognize, opened the door with wide eyes. Whoa, nice ride, sir. I stepped out. The flashbulbs of the local newspaper photographer went off. I took Olivia's hand and we walked up the steps. Inside, the ballroom was decorated in gold and white. I scanned the room. It didn't take long to find them. They were sitting at a table near the back. They looked diminished. Mom was wearing a dress I remembered from 10 years ago. Dad looked frail, his skin papery and pale. Lucas was wearing a suit that was too tight, his face puffy from alcohol. And Bella was dripping in flashy jewelry that I knew was either fake or bought on credit cards that were about to be declined. We walked straight through the center of the room. People started to whisper, Is that Ethan Sterling? I thought he was in jail? Look at that suit. Look at her. We stopped right in front of their table. Lucas looked up, a crab cake halfway to his mouth. He dropped his fork. clattered loudly against the china. "Hello, family," I said. My voice was calm, projecting just enough for the surrounding tables to hear. Mom stood up, her hand flying to her chest. "Ethan, you look well, mother," I lied. Bella's eyes went wide. She scanned me from head to toe, assessing the value of my watch, a Patek Philippe this time, my shoes, my suit. Then she looked at Olivia, and I saw a flicker of pure jealousy. "What are you doing here?" Lucas sneered, trying to recover his bravado. "Come to beg for forgiveness?" I laughed. It was a genuine, dry laugh. "No, Lucas. I just happened to be in town on business. I acquired some assets in the area." "Assets?" Bella asked, her voice suddenly sweet. "You're doing business here?" "Real estate," I said. "I own a holding company in Seattle. We've been buying up distressed properties." I saw the gears turning in Bella's head. Distressed properties. Like theirs. "Well," Mom said, her voice trembling, "I suppose you should sit down. We can make room." She was doing it. She was rewriting history in real time because I looked successful. "No thanks," I said. "We have our own table. With the mayor." I nodded to them and walked away. I felt their eyes burning into my back. I knew exactly what was happening. The bait was in the water. The gala was a blur of handshakes and fake smiles. I spent the evening charming the local elite, dropping subtle hints about my investment firm. Out of the corner of my eye, I watched my family. They were arguing. Lucas was downing drinks. Bella was typing furiously on her phone. As we were leaving, Bella intercepted me near the coat check. She was alone. "Ethan," she purred, blocking my path. "You really made an entrance." "Excuse me," I said, trying to step around her. "Don't be like that," she said, touching my arm again. The same move from 5 years ago. "I know things ended badly, but we were all young. We made mistakes. Some mistakes have consequences, Bella." "I miss you," she whispered, looking around to make sure Lucas wasn't watching. "Lucas is a loser. You know that. I always knew you were the one with the potential." I looked at her, and all I felt was disgust. "Is that right? Maybe we could get coffee? Just to catch up." She slipped a piece of paper into my hand. "Her number." "I'll think about it," I said, pocketing the paper. I walked out to the car where Olivia was waiting. I showed her the paper. "She took the bait?" Olivia asked. "Hook, line, and sinker." The next morning, I sent a text to Lucas. "Family meeting. My hotel suite. 10 a.m. Don't be late." I knew they would come. They smelled money. They probably thought I was going to pay for Dad's surgery or pay off the house. They thought the prodigal son had returned to save them. At 9:55 a.m., the knock came. I opened the door. They were all there. Mom, Dad, Lucas, and Bella. Mia was there too, looking terrified. "Come in," I said. My suite was the presidential. It was larger than the entire downstairs of their house. I saw Mom taking in the fresh flowers, the view of the lake, the room service cart laden with expensive pastries. "Ethan," Dad said, his voice raspy. "It's good to see you, son." "Sit down," I said, gesturing to the sofas. I remained standing. Olivia stood next to me, holding a file folder. "So," Lucas said, leaning back and spreading his legs aggressively, "you did good for yourself. About time you came back to help the family." "Help?" I asked. "Yeah, help," Lucas said. "Dad's sick. Business is slow. We need a loan. Short term, obviously. I've got some big contracts coming in next month." "I'm not here to give you a loan, Lucas," I said. "Then why are we here?" Mom asked, offended. "I'm here to talk about ownership," I said. "And truth." I looked at Bella. She smiled at me, a conspiratorial smile. She thought she was on my team because of that note. "Bella," I said, "tell everyone about the conversation we had on the porch 5 years ago." The room went silent. Bella blinked. "What? I don't know what you mean. You attacked me." "Did I?" "Yes," she insisted, looking at Lucas. "He touched me." I nodded to Olivia. She picked up a remote control and pointed it at the massive TV on the wall. "I have a habit of recording my business meetings," I said. "And last night at the gala, I considered our interaction business." On the screen, a grainy but clear video played. It was from a hidden camera on my lapel. Bella's voice filled the room. "Lucas is a loser. You know that. I always knew you were the one with the potential." Lucas froze. "That's taken out of context," Bella shrieked. "Is it?" I asked. "What about this?" I played an audio recording. This one was from the coffee I didn't go to, but I had sent Vance to the bar she frequented. He had sat in the booth behind her while she bragged to her friend on the phone just an hour ago. Voice of Bella. "I'm going to milk the brother for everything he's got. If he gives us money, I'm taking half and leaving Lucas. God, I wish I had slept with Ethan 5 years ago instead of framing him. I bet he's better in bed anyway." The silence in the room was absolute. It was heavy, suffocating. Lucas stood up slowly. His face was a mask of shock. He turned to Bella. You framed him?" Bella scrambled back. "No, baby, it's fake. It's AI. He faked it." "It's not fake, Brenda," I said, dropping the name bomb. "Or should I call you by your alias from Ohio?" Olivia tossed the file onto the coffee table. Mugshots, divorce decrees, bankruptcy filings. Lucas picked them up. His hands were shaking so hard the papers rattled. "You lied," Lucas whispered. "For 5 years. You let me hate my brother. For a lie? You wanted to believe it." Bella screamed, her mask falling off completely. "You were jealous of him. You were glad he was gone. Don't act like you're a saint, Lucas." Mom began to cry. Not a gentle cry, but a wailing sound. My family. I looked at them. I felt a grim sense of victory. But it wasn't enough. "Not yet." "Get out," Lucas said to Bella. "What?" "Get out," Lucas roared, throwing the coffee table over. Vases shattered. Pastries flew everywhere. Bella grabbed her purse and ran out of the suite. Now it was just us. The Sterlings. "Ethan," Mom sobbed. "Oh, Ethan. We didn't know. We're so sorry. Can you ever forgive us?" I looked at her. "You didn't ask. You just threw me out." "We were fooled," Dad said. "She fooled us all." I looked at my father. The man who taught me to ride a bike. The man who watched me walk into the snow. "Did she, Dad?" I asked. "Did she really fool you?" Dad looked away. He couldn't meet my eyes. "What do you mean?" Lucas asked, wiping his face. "Tell them, Dad," I said. "Tell them about the private investigator you hired 3 months after I left." Mom stopped crying. She looked at Dad. "Robert? What is he talking about?" Dad slumped in his chair. He looked like he had aged 10 years in 10 seconds. The air in the room changed. The anger toward Bella evaporated, replaced by a darker, more confused tension. "Dad," Lucas asked. "What PI?" My father sighed, a sound like a tire losing air. I wanted to know if Ethan was okay. I was worried. So I hired a man to find him. And, I pressed, "What else did he find?" Dad didn't speak. "He investigated Bella, didn't he?" I said, my voice rising. "He told you about her past. He told you her story didn't add up. He told you that her bruises were likely makeup because she had no injuries in the hospital report. Is this true, Robert?" Mom whispered. "I didn't want to ruin it." Dad burst out, tears streaming down his face. Lucas was so happy. He finally had someone. He was finally getting his life together. If I told the truth, if I told him his fiancée was a liar and his brother was innocent, it would have destroyed him. I thought Ethan was strong. I thought Ethan could handle being on his own. But Lucas needed us. I felt like I had been punched in the gut. Even though I knew it, hearing him say it out loud broke something inside me that I didn't know was still whole. "You sacrificed me," I said, my voice trembling. "You knew I was innocent. You knew I was living in my car. You knew I was starving. And you let me rot to protect Lucas's feelings." I loved you both, Dad cried. No, I said coldly. You loved him. You tolerated me. Lucas was staring at Dad with open-mouthed horror. You knew? You knew Bella was a fake this whole time? And you let me marry her? You let me leverage the house for her. I was trying to keep the peace, Dad shouted. Peace. I laughed bitterly. There is no peace. There is only lies. I walked over to the window. I couldn't look at them anymore. So here is where we stand, I said, keeping my back to them. I know everything. I know about the debts. I know about the mortgage. We can fix it, Mom said, standing up and coming toward me. Now that we know the truth, we can be a family again. Ethan, please, come home. I turned around. I am home, Mom. Seattle is my home. This is just a transaction. I nodded to Olivia. Mr. and Mrs. Sterling Lucas, Olivia said, her voice professional and sharp. As of yesterday morning, Phoenix Holdings has acquired the mortgage on your property at 42 Oak Street. We have also acquired the promissory notes for Riverside construction. Phoenix Holdings? Lucas asked. That's your company, Ethan? It is, I said. So you own the house? Mom asked, a hopeful smile creeping onto her face. Oh, thank God. Thank God. That means we're safe. I looked at her. The delusion was incredible. She really thought that after everything. After the slap, the disowning, the 5 years of silence, the dad's betrayal, that I did this to save them? You're not safe, I said. The smile dropped from her face. You haven't paid the mortgage in 8 months, I said. You are in default. But you're my son, Mom stammered. I was your son when you kicked me out into a blizzard, I said. Now I'm your landlord, and you are terrible tenants. Ethan, don't do this, Dad pleaded, clutching his chest. Don't play the heart card, Dad, I snapped. I paid for your surgery deposit. That anonymous donor? That was me, Dad gasped. Mia started crying again. I saved your life, I told him. But I'm not saving your lifestyle. I pulled a document from my jacket pocket and threw it on the table. This is an eviction notice. You have 7 days to vacate the property. 7 days? Lucas yelled. You can't do that. It's our home. It's my home, I corrected him. And Lucas, regarding your company, I'm calling in the loans. Full payment due immediately. If you can't pay, I'm liquidating the assets. The trucks, the equipment, everything. You're bankrupting me, Lucas said, falling back onto the sofa. You're ruining my life. You ruined your own life, Lucas, I said. You spent 5 years living a lie, spending money you didn't earn, with a woman who didn't love you, protected by a father who didn't respect you enough to tell you the truth. I'm just turning on the lights. Where will we go? Mom whispered. We have nowhere to go. I don't know, I said. Maybe you can find a Motel 6. That's what I did. Ethan, please. Mom grabbed my arm, pulled away. It wasn't gentle, but it wasn't violent. It was just final. Don't touch me, I said. Get out of my hotel room. They didn't move. They were paralyzed by shock. I said get out, I shouted, letting 5 years of rage echo off the walls. They scrambled. Dad leaned heavily on Mia. Mom was sobbing uncontrollably. Lucas looked like a ghost. They filed out of the room, leaving the door open behind them. I walked over and slammed it shut. Then my legs gave out. I sank to the floor, burying my face in my hands. Olivia sat down next to me, wrapping her arms around my shoulders. I didn't cry. I was too empty to cry. I just sat there, listening to the silence, waiting to feel good about it. But I didn't feel good. I just felt done. The next 7 days were a blur of legal motions and small-town gossip. The news that Ethan Sterling had returned and was evicting his own parents spread through the town like wildfire. Some people called me a monster. Others, who had heard rumors about Bella, called it justice. I didn't care. I stayed in the hotel, working remotely, letting Olivia handle the dirty work. On the 7th day, I drove to the house. It was a gray Tuesday. A moving truck was parked in the driveway. It wasn't a professional company, just a U-Haul Lucas had rented. I parked the Rolls-Royce across the street. I wanted to see it. I needed to see it. I watched as Lucas carried boxes out. He looked broken. He had lost weight in just a week. He wasn't wearing his fancy suits anymore. Just jeans and a t-shirt. Dad was sitting on the porch steps, staring at the ground. He looked old. So incredibly old. A police cruiser pulled up. 2 officers got out. I rolled down my window to listen. "Is Bella here?" the officer asked Lucas. "She's inside packing her things," Lucas muttered. "She's leaving today. We have a warrant for her arrest," the officer said. "Fraud, identity theft, and forgery." Lucas didn't even blink. "Take her, please." Moments later, Bella was dragged out in handcuffs. She was screaming, cursing at the police, cursing at Lucas. When she saw my car across the street, she stopped. She stared at me with pure venom. "You go to hell, Ethan," she screamed. "You think you won? You're going to die alone." The officer shoved her into the back of the cruiser. As they drove away, the silence returned to the street. I got out of the car and walked up the driveway. Lucas stopped holding a box of books. He looked at me. There was no fight left in him. "Are you happy?" he asked quietly. "No," I said. "Are you?" He shook his head. "I'm sorry, Ethan. I really am. I was a bad brother." "Yes," I said. "You were." Mom came out of the house carrying a picture frame. It was a photo of the 4 of us, taken 20 years ago at Disney World. We looked so happy. She saw me and stopped. "We're leaving," she said, her voice hollow. "The house is yours. I hope it makes you happy. I hope the memories keep you warm." "Save the guilt trip, Mom," I said. "Where are you going?" "Mia found us a small apartment on the other side of town," she said. It's a walk-up. Dad will struggle with the stairs, but we'll manage." I looked at Dad. He was still sitting on the porch, clutching his chest. He looked like he might not survive the move, let alone the stairs. I looked at the house, this Victorian beast that had swallowed my childhood. I hated it. I didn't want to live here. I didn't even want to sell it. I just wanted the power to say no to them. But looking at them now, defeated, humiliated, broken, I realized something. If I let them rot on the street, I became the monster they accused me of being. I became the predator Mom called me. I would prove her right. I took a deep breath. The cold air filled my lungs. "Stop packing," I said. Lucas looked up. "What?" I said. "Stop packing," I repeated. "Put the box down." I pulled an envelope out of my pocket. Inside was a lease agreement I had Olivia draw up this morning. "I'm not kicking you out," I said. Mom dropped the picture frame. The glass shattered. "Ethan, I'm keeping ownership of the house," I said, my voice hard. "Phoenix Holdings owns it, but you can stay here as tenants." "Tenants?" Dad asked, looking up. "Yes, you will pay rent. It will be fair market value. I will deduct it from the allowance I'm setting up for you." "Allowance?" Lucas asked. "I'm setting up a trust," I said. "It will pay for the house expenses and a monthly stipend for Mom and Dad. Enough to live on, but not enough for luxury. No more country clubs. No more new cars." I turned to Lucas. "But not for you." Lucas flinched. "You're young," I said. "You have 2 hands. You're going to get a job. A real job. And you're going to pay me back every cent you stole from the company. If you miss a payment, I sue you. Understand?" Lucas nodded vigorously. "I understand. Thank you, Ethan." "Thank you." "Don't thank me," I said. "I'm not doing this for you. I'm doing this so I can sleep at night without seeing your faces in my nightmares." I turned to Mom. She was crying again, reaching out to hug me. "No," I said, stepping back. "No hugs. We aren't a happy family. We are landlord and tenants. We are creditor and debtors. That is the only relationship we have now." "But maybe in time?" she asked. "Maybe," I said, "but not today, and probably not tomorrow." I walked over to Dad. I put a hand on his shoulder. He flinched, expecting me to hurt him. "Get the surgery, Dad," I said. "I want you to live long enough to think about what you did." I turned around and walked back to the Rolls-Royce. Olivia was waiting in the passenger seat. She smiled at me, a proud, warm smile. "You didn't destroy them," she said as I buckled my seatbelt. "Destroying them would have been easy," I said, starting the engine. "Mercy? Mercy is a power move." I looked in the rearview mirror one last time. They were standing on the porch, huddled together, watching me leave. They looked small. I put the car in drive and pulled away. The road ahead was clear. The snow had stopped falling. For the first time in 5 years, the sun was breaking through the clouds. The drive back to Seattle was quiet. For the first 50 miles, neither Olivia nor I said a word. The Rolls-Royce glided over the asphalt, insulating us from the world outside, but it couldn't insulate me from the chaotic noise in my own head. I had won. On paper, I had achieved a total, crushing victory. I had exposed the liar, humbled the golden child, and brought my parents to their knees. I held the deed to their house and the strings to their livelihood. So why didn't I feel like celebrating? I loosened my tie, staring at the gray highway stretching out ahead. "You okay?" Olivia asked softly, her hand finding mine on the center console. "I don't know," I admitted. "I thought I would feel lighter. Instead, I just feel tired." "That's because you didn't just buy a house, Ethan," she said, her voice filled with that lawyerly logic I loved. "You bought a burden. You made yourself their keeper. Punishing them takes energy. Hate takes energy." She was right. I had turned the tables, but I was still sitting at the same table. We arrived back in Seattle late that night. My penthouse was dark and cold. For the next few weeks, I threw myself back into work. I drowned myself in blueprints, zoning permits, and contract negotiations. I tried to forget about the Victorian house in upstate New York, but I couldn't. Every first of the month, the reminders came. My assistant, Sarah, would walk in with a file. "The rent check from your parents arrived, Mr. Sterling. It's on time. And the loan repayment from Lucas? Also on time. Though." Sarah hesitated. "The note says it's from his wages at the distribution center. It's barely minimum payments." I would nod, dismiss her, and then stare at the checks. Lucas, the brother who used to mock my cheap suits, was now packing boxes in a warehouse to pay me back. It was justice, poetic and sharp. But every time I deposited those checks, I felt a strange pang. Not guilt exactly, just a realization of how pathetic it all was. 3 months later, the phone rang. It was Vance, the private investigator. "You told me to keep tabs," Vance said. "You want the update? Go ahead. Your dad had the surgery. It went well physically, but he's depressed, Ethan. He sits on that porch all day staring at the street. Your mom, she's trying to keep things together, but she's selling off her jewelry to make ends meet so they don't miss a rent payment. They are terrified of you." "Good," I said, though the word tasted like ash in my mouth. "And Lucas, he's actually working," Vance said, sounding surprised. "He pulls double shifts. He looks like hell, lost about 30 pounds. No booze, no parties. He goes to work, goes home, pays his debt. The kid is growing up, 10 years too late." I hung up the phone and walked out to the balcony. The Seattle skyline glittered before me. I had built all of this. I had friends here, respect, a future. Why was I still letting the ghosts of 42 Oak Street haunt me? Olivia walked out, wrapping her arms around my waist from behind. She rested her chin on my shoulder. "You're thinking about them," she said. It wasn't a question. "I'm thinking about control," I said. "I thought controlling them would fix what they broke in me. It hasn't." "You can't fix a broken bone by breaking someone else's leg," Olivia said gently. "Ethan, you proved your point. You showed them you have the power. But holding onto that power is keeping you tied to them. You're their landlord, which means you're still in a relationship with them." I turned around and looked at her. Her eyes were clear and kind, the only mirror I ever wanted to see myself in. "What should I do?" "Let go," she said. "Not for them. For us." I want to build a life with you, Ethan. A real life. I don't want 3 ghosts living in our spare room. That weekend, I made a decision. I didn't go back to New York. I didn't want to see them. Instead, I called my lawyer, Sam. Sam, I want to transfer the deed to the house, I said. You're selling it? No, I said. I'm putting it into a blind trust. I want you to manage it. You collect the rent. You handle the repairs. You deal with the tenants. I don't want to see a check, I don't want to read a report, and I don't want my name on any correspondence they receive. As far as they know, they pay the trust. If they miss a payment, the trust evicts them. Standard protocol. Total detachment, Sam said. Smart. And Lucas's debt? Same thing, I said. Transfer the note to the trust. If he pays it off, great. If not, garnish his wages. But I don't want to know about it. And the surplus? Sam asked. The rent and the loan payments will accumulate. What do you want to do with the cash? I looked at Olivia, who was smiling at me from across the room. Set up a scholarship fund, I said. 4 kids in the foster system who age out without family support. Call it the Phoenix Fund. Every dime my family pays me goes to help kids who actually appreciate a chance at life. Signing those papers was the hardest thing I had ever done, and also the easiest. With every signature, I felt a weight lifting off my chest. I wasn't forgiving them. I wasn't forgetting. I was just evicting them from my head. A year passed. Then 2. Life moved on fast and bright. My company expanded into green energy commercial spaces. I was featured in Forbes. But the biggest highlight wasn't the money. It was the Saturday morning in June when I took Olivia to a small cliffside spot overlooking the Pacific Ocean. I didn't have a speech prepared. I just had a ring. A simple, elegant diamond that didn't scream for attention, just like her. I don't have a family to offer you, I told her, my voice shaking slightly. Just me. And a lot of baggage that I'm learning to unpack. She took the ring and put it on her finger herself. I don't need a family, Ethan. I need a partner. And you're the best man I know. We got married 4 months later. It wasn't a big gala. It was intimate. My mentor, Silas, stood as my best man. He was 80 now, frail but sharp as a tack. You did good, kid, Silas told me at the reception, raising a glass of champagne. You learned the hardest lesson of business and life. You learned when to walk away from a bad deal. Even when the bad deal is your own blood? I asked. Especially then, he said. During the reception, I saw a familiar face near the back. It was Mia. She had graduated college, paid for by me though she tried to refuse it, and was working as a graphic designer in Chicago. She looked nervous. I walked over to her. I'm glad you came, Mia. She hugged me tight. Mom and Dad wanted to send a card, she said, pulling back. But the lawyers returned it. Said, no contact means no contact. That's right, I said. They follow the rules, Mia said. Dad is frail, but he's alive. Mom volunteers at the library now. And Lucas. She paused. Lucas is the manager of the warehouse now. He's paying off the last of the debt next month. He told me to tell you. He said to tell you that you were right. About everything. I nodded. It didn't bring me joy, but it brought me peace. I'm glad he's figuring it out. They talk about you, Mia whispered. Not with anger anymore. Just regret. They know what they lost. I looked over at the dance floor. Olivia was laughing, dancing with her father. Her family had welcomed me with open arms, treating me like a son from day one. That was real. That was tangible. They didn't lose me, Mia, I said gently. They threw me away. I just finally stopped trying to climb back into the trash can. 5 years have passed since the day I returned to that small town in the Rolls-Royce. 10 years since the Christmas Eve that shattered my world. I am 36 now. My hair has a little gray at the temples. Olivia says it makes me look distinguished. I say it makes me look like Silas. We have a son, Leo. He's 2 years old, running around our backyard with a chaotic energy that terrifies and delights me. When Leo was born, I had a moment of panic. I held him in the delivery room, looking at his tiny, fragile face, and I was terrified. What if I have the gene? What if I have that dormant ability to turn on my child the way my parents turned on me? What if love is conditional, and I just don't know the conditions yet? But then Leo squeezed my finger. He looked at me with absolute, blind trust. And I knew. The cycle stops with me. I haven't spoken to my parents. Not once. The trust fund reports that they are still in the house. They pay their rent on the first of the month every month. They are model tenants. I suppose, in a twisted way, that is the most respectful relationship we've ever had. We have boundaries. We have a contract. We have distance. Lucas paid off his debt 3 years ago. The trust administrator told me that after the final payment, Lucas sent a letter addressed to me. The administrator asked if I wanted to read it. I said no. I didn't need his apology to validate my existence. I didn't need his remorse to feel successful. Reading that letter would have opened a door I had welded shut. I told the administrator to burn it. Sometimes people ask me if I regret it. If I regret missing my father's old age, or my mother's cooking, or the shared history of a family. And I'll be honest with you. Sometimes on Christmas Eve, when the snow is falling, I feel a phantom pain, like a limb that's been amputated. I remember the good years before Bella, before the money, before the betrayal. But then I look at my life now. I look at the Phoenix Fund, which has put 24 foster kids through college this year. Kids who had no one, now building futures because of the money my family pays in penance. I look at Olivia, my partner in every sense of the word, who loves me for who I am, not what I can buy her. I look at Leo, who will never, ever have to wonder if his father believes him. He will never have to buy my love with a Rolex. He will never be thrown out into a blizzard. I realize that family isn't a noun. It's a verb. It's something you do. You earn it. You nurture it. You protect it. My parents failed to do the verb, so they lost the noun. I saved myself. It was a messy, painful, expensive rescue mission. I had to become cold to survive the winter. I had to become ruthless to fight the predators. But I made it to the other side. The Rolls-Royce I drove that day, I sold it. It was a symbol of my anger, a weapon I used to bludgeon them with my success. I drive a Volvo now, the safer for the baby seat. If you are listening to this and you are holding on to a toxic relationship because you share DNA, or because you share a history, let me tell you this, you are allowed to walk away. You are allowed to save yourself. You don't have to set yourself on fire to keep others warm. My name is Ethan Sterling. I was the black sheep. I was the predator. I was the villain in their story. But in my story, I'm just a man who finally came home. Not to the house on Oak Street, but to the life I built with my own 2 hands. And let me tell you, the view from here is beautiful. Thank you for journeying with me through this chapter of my life. It wasn't an easy story to tell, but I believe it's a necessary one. Before we part ways, I want to share 3 core lessons that I hope you carry with you. 1. Blood is not a binding contract. We are often taught that family comes first, no matter what. But abuse, betrayal, and manipulation are not things you have to endure just because of a genetic connection. You have the right to curate your life and surround yourself with people who genuinely respect you. 2. Success is the best revenge, but peace is better. I spent years fueled by the desire to prove them wrong. It drove me to succeed, yes, but it also left me hollow. True victory wasn't buying their house. It was the moment I stopped caring about what they thought. Financial independence gave me the freedom to walk away, and that is the ultimate power. 3. The cycle can be broken. If you came from a broken or toxic home, you are not destined to repeat it. You can build a chosen family based on love, trust, and mutual respect. You can be the father, mother, or partner you never had. I want to hear from you now. What is the one quality you value most in a family member? Is it loyalty, honesty, or something else? Or, if this story resonated with you and you agree that we must protect our peace at all costs, just comment good below. Your interaction helps the story reach others who might be trapped in the dark, needing to see a light at the end of the tunnel. Thank you for listening, and remember, you are the architect of your own future.